The 1970s were a golden age for creature features that missed the mark, sometimes by a mile, but somehow became unforgettable. These weren't just bad movies. They were so bad, they were great. And if you grew up with them, you know exactly what I mean. These are the movies that came on after the local news, or played at the drive-in while you tried to stay awake in the back seat. You didn't watch them because they were good. You watched them because they were monsters. Today we're digging up the wildest, weirdest, and most wonderfully awful monster movies of the 1970s. The ones that made you laugh, cringe, and cheer all at the same time. Let's see which ones you remember, and which ones you tried to forget. Trog, 1970. What happens when an Oscar-winning legend faces off with a man in a shaggy ape suit? Trog was Joan Crawford's final film, and it's a fever dream from start to finish. Crawford plays a psychiatrist trying to rehabilitate a prehistoric missing link discovered in a cave. The production rewrote a male role for Crawford, and she delivers every line with the seriousness of a courtroom drama, even as she's wandering papier-mâché caves screaming at a man in a monkey suit. The monster suit looks like it was borrowed from a kid's Halloween party, and the dialogue is so stiff it's become legendary. Critics laughed off the bargain bin makeup and stilted script, but that total mismatch, Oscar winner gravitas meets Saturday morning monster, has turned Trog into camp royalty. It's a movie that's impossible to take seriously, but even harder to look away from. If you were a kid in the 70s, you probably caught it on a grainy UHF station after the 11 o'clock news, sitting cross-legged on the carpet while your dad half-watched from his recliner. And even if you laughed at the suit, you didn't change the channel. Equinox, 1970. Before The Evil Dead, a group of friends tried to summon Lovecraft in a California canyon. Equinox started as a student film, shot on weekends by a handful of friends with a cursed book, a borrowed camera, and is an obvious labor of love. If you ever shot Super 8 movies in your backyard or tried to make monsters out of cardboard and glue, this one felt personal. It wasn't polished. It felt like something you and your friends could have made. The film is clunky, slow, padded with repetitive walking and bad dialogue. The acting is over the top, the editing may be clumsy, but the ambition is off the charts, and it ultimately still manages to entertain. Homemade demons, cosmic horror, and a plot that feels like a rough draft for Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, years before Raimi picked up a camera. Equinox is like that trashy book you can't put down just in case it gets better. What makes Equinox so endearing is the gap between its ambition and its resources. You can see the seams, the glue, the love poured into every frame. It's kids trying to summon Lovecraft with garage effects, and somehow, it works. It's a so bad it's great curiosity that's become a cult favorite for monster movie fans. Werewolves on Wheels, 1971. What if Easy Rider took a wrong turn into a werewolf movie? Werewolves on Wheels mashes up biker gang cinema, satanic cults, and werewolf attacks, then forgets to make any of it coherent. For long stretches, it feels like a dusty biker hangout movie. Leather jackets, desert roads, and slow-motion brawls. Then, out of nowhere, you get awkward occult rituals and barely visible werewolf transformations. You see way more wheels than werewolves. The film's total inability to decide what it wants to be is exactly why cult fans treasure it now. It's 3 exploitation movies smashed together into one gloriously confused road trip. The result? A movie that's never boring, always surprising, and impossible to explain to anyone who hasn't seen it. Octaman, 1971. What if a future Oscar-winning effects artist had to make an octopus man suit on a shoestring budget? Octaman is what happens when you give a young Rick Baker almost no money and ask for a monster suit in a hurry. The result? A rubbery, droopy, tentacled creature shown in full, bright light within minutes. The actors have to visibly help the monster grab them, and the cardboard jungle sets don't help. The film takes its eco-mutant premise deathly seriously, but between the wobbly costume and the earnest performances, it's become a perfect party night monster movie. Impossible to believe, even harder to look away from. And for monster fans, it's a must-see just to witness Rick Baker's humble beginnings. Night of the Lepus, 1972.
How far do you think those rabbits travel with each stride?
Oh, judging from the tracks we've seen, I'd say, 4, maybe 5.
Can you make killer rabbits scary? MGM tried, and failed spectacularly. Night of the Lepus tries to turn cute rabbits into a doomsday eco-threat and refuses to admit how silly that is. MGM swapped the novel's mutant rats for bunnies, then shot real rabbits stampeding through miniature towns in slow motion. For close-quarter kills, they cut to a man in a rabbit suit. The straight-face tone is what elevates it from bad to a legendary so bad it's good. Scientists gravely discuss mutant rabbits, while house pets hop through model train sets. The result is a movie that's impossible to take seriously, but unforgettable once you've seen it. It's the kind of film that makes you wonder how it ever got made, and why you can't stop watching. You remember the TV promos making it sound like the scariest thing ever? And then sitting there with a bowl of cereal watching giant rabbits hop through model towns. You laughed, but you watched the whole thing anyway. Godzilla vs. Megalon, 1973. What happens when Godzilla teams up with a karate robot for tag team wrestling? Godzilla vs. Megalon was cranked out quickly to satisfy kids and a contest-created hero. The film is infamous for stock footage, wild tonal shifts, and toy commercial vibes. Jet Jaguar, a karate-posing robot, teams up with Godzilla for tag-team wrestling matches, complete with that meme-worthy flying dropkick across a miniature valley. Long derided as the goofy low point of the Showa era, it's now embraced as pure kaiju junk food. Cheap, loud, and endlessly rewatchable when you stop expecting gravitas. If you ever wanted to see Godzilla high-five a robot, this is the movie for you. And somehow, this is what we grew up on. No streaming, no rewinds, no second chances. If it was on, you watched it. Food of the Gods, 1976. What if H.G. Wells' eco-horror became a parade of giant rats, chickens, and wasps? Bert the First Gordon took H.G. Wells' story about runaway growth and turned it into a parade of giant rats, chickens, and wasps attacking backwoods cabins. The crew used oversized props, mechanized rat heads, and crude opticals. So crude you can sometimes spot the tricks and even glimpses of operators behind giant animals. Critics hammered it for fake creatures and clunky eco-moralizing. Yet it became AIP's biggest hit that year and even scored a Saturn nomination. It's the ultimate trashy 70s giant animal movie. So fake, so earnest, and so much fun to watch with friends. Empire of the Ants, 1977. What if Joan Collins had to sell real estate in a town run by mind-controlling ants? Empire of the Ants throws Joan Collins into a real estate scam that turns into a toxic waste ant uprising and never once laughs at itself. To make the monsters, Bert I. Gordon composited close-ups of real ants onto live action, resulting in insects that float in mid-air or crawl straight off buildings into the sky. That mix of ambitious pulp ideas, mind-controlling ants running a sugar mill, and utterly broken visuals has made it a beloved drive-in relic. It's so wrong on every technical level that it loops back to delightful. If you ever wanted to see Joan Collins chased by a 6-foot ant, this is your movie. Tentacles, 1977.
Hey! Chuck!
What if Jaws was remade in Italy, with a rubber octopus and Oscar-winning actors? Tentacles is Italy's answer to Jaws. Cast Henry Fonda, John Huston, and Shelley Winters, then pit them against a barely convincing killer octopus. The movie lurches between slow, talky melodrama and attack scenes stitched together from real octopus footage, miniatures, and rubber limbs that rarely match in scale. Today it's cherished as a disaster piece, overqualified stars delivering deadly serious speeches while a wobbly cephalopod flails through mismatched shots in the background. It's a movie that's so earnest, so off-kilter, you can't help but love it. Prophecy, 1979. What if a mutant bear in a rainstorm became the most infamous eco-horror monster of the decade? Prophecy swings for prestige eco-horror, with John Frankenheimer tackling pollution, native land rights, and birth defects, then unleashing a mutant bear that looks like a melted mascot suit. The Catadin creature, glimpsed in chaotic night shoots and rain, has become a meme in its own right, endlessly compared to off-brand man-bear-pig images online. The collision of solemn message movie speeches with rubber monster mayhem turned a failed studio thriller into a cult favorite, the high watermark of 70s environmental horror gone completely off the rails. It's a movie that tried to say something important, but ended up being remembered for its monster suit. Which one do you remember best? Which one terrified you, or made you laugh harder than it should have? Because these movies weren't polished, they weren't perfect, but they were ours.